If you're serious about songwriting, this tape will profoundly enhance your knowledge of the songwriting profession. Hi, I'm Clint Black, and I hope you'll watch and study this tape thoroughly. The songwriters and professionals who donated their time for this project wanted to give you a leg up, a solid foundation for your career. If you'll follow the tips outlined in this tape, you'll probably save yourself a good bit of time and a lot of sweat. Many talented people started just like you with nothing more than a few ideas and a burning desire to write a hit song. Most of them made a lot of mistakes along the way, and this tape is your chance to learn from their failures and discoveries in a way that has never before been possible. This is their gift to you.
I never thought that I could hurt this way. Heartache number 2 was when you came back again. You came back and never meant to stay. Now I've got heartaches by the number, troubles by the score. Every day you love me less, each day I love you more. Yes, I've got heartaches by the number, love that I can't win. But the day that I stop counting, that's the day my world will end. Hey.
All right.
That song was written in 1959. I was still a factory worker in L.A. The idea came from being a paratrooper for a couple years when I was a foolish young kid and didn't know any better. And everything in the Army was by the numbers. So anyhow, I kind of took the by the numbers thing, said why not heartaches by the number, and wrote the little ditty. And to this day, this is 1992, it's still my biggest hit.
Hadn't met Eve on a Saturday night. That's when the trouble started. She said, Adam, let's go get a bite. And she led him to the garden. And ever since we try to make sense of this mystery emotion, well, we might as well try to count the stars in the sky or those raindrops in the ocean. Don't you know true love is deeper than deep? It's hotter than a fire. Well, it's hard to find and harder to keep. It's the thing we most desire. Well, that's my idea of trying to take a real familiar title and try to write something that's a little unique. And also, I wanted to write a song where I rhymed fire and desire, because I'd never done it before. I always thought it was a terribly cheap rhyme, and I always wanted to write a song that I liked where I rhymed fire and desire. Basically, I was trying to write a lighthearted love song that still said something, and that it would sort of had my sense of humor to it, and that's where that came from.
Tears no longer waiting. My resistance ain't that strong. My mind keeps recreating a life with you alone. I wrote Anymore in either 89 or 90, and I live in Los Angeles, and I was at the end of a 2-month writing trip, completely burned out, felt like I had nothing more to write about, and I was in the studio demoing up all the things that I had written during those 2 months, and I happened to go sit at the piano, and Anymore started to, well, it wasn't called Anymore at the time, but the song started just kind of pouring out at me, and I left town with it unfinished and had the good fortune to finish it with my friend Travis Tritt. And rumor has it that the song was written on an airplane, but actually one line was written on the airplane. Travis and I happened to be on a plane together, and another line, a lyrical line, was written in a sushi bar, and the rest was, we got together here in Nashville and finished it, and it was my second #1 song and one of my favorite songs to date.
I'll be fine when you're gone. I'll just cry all night long. Say it isn't true. Don't it make my brown eyes blue? Well, I wrote that song, I guess in 1976 or 77. And I got the idea for that song over there where I used to live on Glen Echo Road in Nashville. I was looking at my dog, Amanda, and I was stuck on, I had every line but the title, and had a little working title of Rainbows Turn into Blue, and I looked down at Amanda, who had these great big brown eyes, and I thought, brown eyes turn into blue. I went, nah, it's too commercial. But I ended up using it thanks to Amanda. She talked me into it, and I'm very grateful to her to this very day. And it's a funny little thing. At the end of her life, she got hit in the eye with a rock from a trash truck. It's gospel truth. And one of her brown eyes turned blue. Yeah, it did. It's the truth.
Yeah.
There's a quarter moon that's laying up on the ridge, and he's making up his mind to rise or to set. There's a lot of water flowing under this bridge. There's a voice inside me saying, get your feet wet, 'cause that's that. I can scream, I can shout, I can cry my eyes out, but she's not coming back, and that's that. I can hope, I can pray, but she's still gone away, and she's not coming back, and that's that. That song came from a couple of different things. I had the idea of That's That. Now, that doesn't sound like the kind of title you'd write down, but for some reason I wrote that down. My wife said that one day, That's That, and I wrote that down. And I was thinking, meaning that was, I always try to get my songs into a relationship kind of idea, and I thought it'd be about the end of a relationship. It really did me a great deal of good because it just really caught the ear of the music people in town here, because it was so different. And it really, for the first time, it's when after that song came out, everybody, the producers started calling me because it was just so different.
Music to me is poetry set to music. And if you can take a song and get rid of the music and look at it, and it's a poem or something beautiful, then you've done your job.
Songwriting to me is something that I'll take any way I can get. Sometimes it's lyric, sometimes it's sheer poetry, and then a melody is developed. Sometimes it's all melody. Sometimes it's a combination of both, which can throw you a little bit.
I see songwriting as a balance between art and creativity and commercialism.
I've got a tiger by the tail, it's plain to see. And I won't be much when you get through with me. I'm losing weight and turning mighty pale, and it looks like I've got a tiger by. All right, that was written for the money. No, back years ago, Buck Owens called me from Bakersfield, and I was down here in Nashville. He said, let's talk a little business. He says, why don't you meet me out in West Texas? So I went out while he was on tour, and I rode in the bus with him. And Put a Tiger in Your Tank was a big Esso commercial at the time. And Buck said, let's write this song. And he had this little chorus start up to that. The chorus, I've got a tiger by the tail. And I was belligerent. I said, Buck, I want to write a great dramatic tragedy. And anyhow, we went through Lubbock about 6 days in a row, back and forth to all these Texas towns. And finally, the 6th day, I relented. You know, I was bored. I read all my books. Everything was said. And so I wrote him a couple verses for Tiger by the Tail, and I threw him up in the front seat. And then he went back to L.A. and recorded it, and we made a bunch of money. And so anyhow, yay, Buck. Well, I write very much from a formula, and I didn't invent it. I studied, you know, the old country writers and structure and the Tin Pan Alley songs that were so wonderful, still are, you know, and like there is a formula, and it was founded back in the early 1900s, you know, and even basically the length of a song. It was all agreed upon before I got here, you know, so it's like I'm following that formula.
I'm sure that there are formulas for writing songs. I don't like to use them myself. I kind of take a germ of an idea. Sometimes I start in the middle of a chorus or the middle of a verse and back away from whatever energy I found in this line.
You got to sing like you don't need the money, love, like you'll never get hurt. You got to dance like nobody's watching. It's got to come from the heart if you want it to work.
I think you may not realize it, but you know, I think you have a lot of formula in your head. You know what I mean? That you don't have to think about. I'm a great believer that formula is in no way a dirty word. That the formula came after the hits. You know what I mean? And people began to notice certain similarities between, you know, hits. But I do, you know, I think successful writing is a knowledge of those formulas and then an ability to try to stay within those boundaries, but not be bound by them. In other words, you know, the classic example is length of a song. In other words, most of the beginning songwriters, you know, you ask them how long their song is, and first of all, they don't have any idea, and then second of all, they check it, and it's like 6 minutes long. You know, and you know, to me, the real magic of songwriting, really and truly, is to have these hurdles that drive you crazy.
Why don't we get caught in this moment? Be victims of sweet circumstance. Tonight I feel like all creation is asking us to dance.
I don't feel like I write by formula either, Richard, but I sure enjoy it when I have an idea first. You know, the easiest way for me to approach a song, and maybe for everyone, is to, I would imagine for everyone, is to have a hook or a title, and then to write the chorus first. And then once you've got your chorus, you go back to the top of the song, and that helps you to write the first verse because you know where you're going, and maybe a second verse if there is one, and then a chorus. But often, you know, songs don't come that way.
Formula, but one of my breakthroughs was that I started to study the classic Tin Pan Alley songs of the 40s and 50s, and I've noticed that their melodies were always very distinctive, that on the ends of high notes there was always an open vowel sound. Things had a neat order to them, and I guess what I decided was, instead of letting that be a trap and a confining thing, I was going to work within that format, and that, by accepting the format, that was going to make it creatively liberating to me, because then I knew where my limits were. I wanted to write 2 verses, a chorus, and a bridge, sometimes 3 verses. And once I started working in that form, I started to perfect that form as it related to my songwriting.
There's something about this time of year that spins my head around, takes me back makes me wonder what's she doing now.
The only formula for me is to keep my head clear enough to let the ideas come through. That's about as formulated as I ever get. I tend to write when I have something to say.
If you write the idea, whatever it is that you're starting with, on a piece of paper, and then draw a line from there and write the first thing that comes to your mind, and then think about that and draw a line from there and write the first thing that comes to your mind. If you do that, by the time you fill that page up, you'll have everything that could possibly relate.
It's a huge mess, then you start piecing it together. Mark Sanders writes that way. We'll write and write and write. We wrote a song called Victim of the Game together, and we had the 4 or 5 verses, or 4 verses in the chorus all put together when we first wrote it, but then all of a sudden it started changing, and the 3rd verse became the 1st verse, and this became this, and this became that, until finally the piece of the puzzle was there. And I think that's the way it is. I think one song is 20 or 30 great lines. So just write your great lines when they come to you. Write them, write them, write them, and then start piecing them together.
When you want someone more,
That's the most
and you know they'll ever be. That's almost right, don't it?
Well, it's almost like when you need more from someone than you know they'll ever be.
When you need.
When you need more from someone than you know they'll ever be.
Somewhere there.
That was me.
I mean, is that true though? I mean, is it might not be the fact that what this woman knows he can be, you know?
Well, it's almost hoping. Well, it's that old thing, you know. If you could only change,
Right.
we could be happy.
I don't know, man. It's almost like this guy could be what she needs him to be. Why isn't he? What's his deal? Does he not want to let go of that freedom?
Plus commitment, you know, fear of commitment. That's the disease that keeps most men from having a good married life.
Yeah, but it's almost like the view of the river is much prettier from the bridge than it is from either side. You know what I mean?
You mean if we get above the situation, then things...
Well, if we join together,
Yeah.
the view is better.
Right.
It always is.
I see.
There's a danger in organizing your creativity, to me, in my opinion, and that is, well, I'll give you an example. My daughter, Morgan, who is 5.5 years old right now, and she's learning to color, and she's learning to draw, and it's just wonderful to watch her experiment with creativity. And it's real tempting to say, you know, Morgan, you know, the sun is not blue. It's real tempting to say, you know, the sun is not, that's you don't do that. That's organizing her creativity. That's stopping her creativity. Avoid that trap as a songwriter and think of yourself as a little child coloring, and you can use any colors you want. You can go outside the lines if you want. If you can do that, then you're going to come up with something that's going to be an exciting piece of music, probably, that will be a trend setter rather than a follower. And that's what I would shoot for, and I would recommend all writers to try to be, as scary as it may seem, I would recommend them try to set a trend, not follow one.
I get a lot of songs that say, you know, I grabbed my Stetson hat and me and my baby went two-stepping across the sawdust floor. And as soon as I hear that, the tape goes out, and I throw it about as far as I can, you know, as far as the walls will let me.
You know, if you have a mediocre idea, it doesn't matter what kind of effort you put out, how hard you try, you're going to come out with a mediocre song. I think once you've had success as a songwriter, you begin to do more daring things, and you get more confidence, so you don't play it safe at all. And if you come upon something new, and it's a little different kind of a structure, that's okay. In fact, it's fantastic. I love it when I fall on something and I think, well, this isn't really a typical verse and chorus, but it feels right. And now I'm brave enough to do some things that I may not have been 5 or 6 years ago.
I think a really experienced songwriter knows when to take a chance. In other words, I really do believe, had I been a few years ago, I would have thought of Whisper of Smoke, and I would have thought, Well, that's kind of neat, but you don't really say whisper of smoke, you know. So I'm not going to use that because you don't say, you know, or someone might have said to me, well, you know, that line whisper of smoke. No one says whisper of smoke, you know. They say whisper, and you know, you're right, and I would have. But as you get more confident, you know, when you come to these little things, and you think, well, that's not normally the way you do it, but I like it like that. You know, I'm going to stick with it. I'm just a whisper of smoke. I'm all that's left of two hearts on fire that once burned out of control, that took my body and soul. I'm just a ghost inside.
I told a seminar once, you know, that I was just kind of kidding, but actually it had a lot of truth to it. I said, you know, take one of my songs or Hank Williams, any song you know, and use the phrasing in that song and write you know, have your own title, write your own verses, make them rhyme wherever he did, you know, sing it to that guy's melody, and when you get all done, just change the melody, and you've got your own song. In other words, just tell them about structure if you don't, you know, and that would get you into meter and so forth and phrasing, and you know, and it's a simple way to do it, but actually you could do it, you know, and I don't do that consciously, but I'm sure I've done it unconsciously.
That was me. I bet I've called 100 times. That was me. I bet I've wrote 1,000 lines.
Wait, oh, there, whatever that chord you had. Just take that one easy. That's me. That's me. Oh, that's me. You know, you almost do like a repeat thing on that last thing. That's me. Oh, that's me.
You go back
Except-
to before there.
Except that's Martina McBride's That's Me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, then I write that then.
It worked once.
Hey, was it a hit? That's all I care.
And the elements of a hit melody continue to be a mystery to everyone.
I might just hear a melody come into my head, a verse, a chorus, whatever. I don't know what it is when I first hear it.
The one area that I find the most elusive to try to understand is melody. Why is it this melody sounds so much better just because I move that note right there, you know, one step up, and it gives me goosebumps, and you know, it didn't before.
You know, there's a cadence in language, a natural rhythm, and it'll suggest melodies to you. It'll sing to you sometimes, and melodies will speak to you. You'll hear a melody and you'll translate it into words. Songs are two languages, two separate languages. The written, printed word and the printed note. These are two separate, distinct languages. And the song is when you bring these two separate languages together into one unique language that never existed before. And they appear magically to suspend there as one. And you cease to hear one or the other, and you hear them both at the same time, and you understand what's happening. And if you can get them to always equal that little magic spot and that create that new language, what you have is what they call around here a hit song. And that was a great aid to me when I finally figured out it took me so long to realize I was utilizing two different languages.
It's like melodies just seem to come out. It's like you're looking at the words, and the words tell you what the melody should be. It's like if it's a sad song, why, you know, you might put the notes fall off in a sad manner, you know, and if it's a lilting thing, why, these happy little melodies just start appearing in my mind, and for some reason, I've got a flair, a gift for that. And to me, and if I didn't like a melody, it's so easy to change it and get in a whole, I mean, I just go to another key. If I was writing a melody in G I didn't like, I'd go down to D. You start all over again, you know, and you have to start with lower or higher notes, and it takes you a whole new territory, you know, and so it's like, to me, melodies are just fairly easy. I like simple songs, you know, original simple songs. I don't like to use any chords I don't have to. I don't even like extra words or syllables in a song if they don't belong there. And I also think about all these hundreds and hundreds of bands playing in little honky-tonks and clubs, and I want them to play my music. And sometimes they're not, you know, the world's greatest musicians. And so make it easier for them also. I want them doing my songs because they're fun and they're easy.
Musically, you sort of get into familiar patterns. Sometimes you keep writing the same kind of chord changes over and over. And unless you're really very good, sooner or later your song's going to start to sound alike. So I like to occasionally write a song like The Thunder Rolls, for example. We wrote that in the key of D minor, which I never write in. And I try to consciously change the key I'm writing in to stimulate new harmonic changes and new chord structures.
And I keep waiting for you to forgive me, and you keep saying you can't even start. And I feel like a stone you have picked up and thrown to the heart. And I do the chorus. Well, when I originally wrote the song, I did. And I feel like a stone you have picked up and thrown. And I just had a long pause in there. To the hard rock bottom of your heart. And then later on I thought, I'll fill that pause up with a little thing, you know, and like that. And it really was a nice little, I think, hooky idea in the song. I think a lot of times you get ideas, I think experienced songwriters get these sort of, like, to me, little gravy idea things. A lot of times after the song is essentially sort of written.
This is really what songwriting is like. This is the real co-writing.
And it's always, the resolution of these problems are always either, when you get in this situation, go get something to eat.
That's right.
That's why I've gained 40 pounds since I started this business.
I had my first hit when I was 21, and I'd been writing 6 years then. And I'm 48 now. And in the 27 years, I've had 5 hot years, 5 cold years, 5 hot years, 5 cold years, 5 hot years. I'm hot again. And cold is still cold. Hot is still wonderful. When you go to number 1, you're number 1 for a week, maybe 2 if you're lucky. And the next week, you're number 35. And you're number 50, and number 60, and you're gone, and someone else is number 1.
I'm a happy guy, you know?
That's super.
Thanks.
And that's in that movie, right? The Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper thing. Wow, we're jamming. Is it going to be a single? Or? Get us back. You're born with the gift of perception. You're not born with the ability to write. It's like writers say, yeah, well, I have the idea and I done it. Well, that's like coming to me with a great piece of wood and all the screws and the drill and the glue and the clamps, and you don't know how to put it together. Now, left to your own devices, you'll turn out a cheap little table that will wobbly hold up a cup of coffee. With the same wood and the same equipment and expertise, you'll turn out a piece that will last not your lifetime, but many lifetimes. I was taught by the best 30-odd years ago. I mean, they just beat me up every day. I run the tunes by them. They say, oh, no, there's no internal rhyme. There's no alliteration. You haven't got 3 moving parts. You moved your rhyme scheme. You got pronoun shifts. So that's why the seminar system, like, you know, through the NSAI, is invaluable. I give up 21 days a year for teaching.
Close the dream, always rises to the top. You can't stop it, like you can't stop the rain.
Okay, what I was going to do, first of all, I got a new song of Richard Lee's in mind I want to run by you. Well, it's only one tune. I was just going to run in and do the dance of the rubber chicken. But what I could do is do it a little earlier, say at like 12, if that's tough for you to do it in the afternoon. How about that? Because I'm writing with Danielle. 99% of your day is rejection. The 1% when it comes through is like the sun coming through the clouds. It just makes your heart sing. First thing in the morning. Okay, new Richard Lee, Ralph Murphy song. Just so happens I have a lyric right here. If you go in expecting everyone to love it, you're beat. I mean, because it's just not going to happen. You go in expecting rejection. You put the best face on it. I mean, you go in going, yeah, you're going to love this song. It's going to be wonderful. And inside you're going, they're not going to like this song. And so you go in, once you expect that, when they go yes, you go, ah, it's like you're blown away. It's so neat.
Incredible. I love this. Yes. It'd be great for Reba.
Yeah, I know. I'm a very quick pitch. I go in, I play it, and I'm gone. I don't want to sit there and have 2 cups of coffee and say, you know, how's the family and whatever, because these people listen to 500-600 songs a week minimum. And the less time you take up, the faster you get in and get out, the more likely you are to get an appointment. Because you're economical. They can see 20 people like me a day, and they will only have spent 40 minutes of their day. They'll listen like a verse chorus and go, yeah, I like that. Let me hold on to it. I'll play it for the artist. I'll play it for the producer. I'll play it for the manager or whatever. And you have to trust them enough to know that they are actually going to do that.
Make sure that you've got a hold of that song before you start showing it. And I know I'm susceptible to opinion, and it's real easy to get off the track. When someone suggests you maybe ought to sing down this way instead of singing up that way, follow your nose. And when you're done with it, sing it proudly.
Don't wait for somebody else to tell you when a line is weak in a song or the melody sounds familiar. I mean, you should be the first one on that. Your friends are your absolute, the last people you should be paying attention to. Your friends and family love you. And that's not necessarily true of people that you're gonna play your songs for. They're interested in the song. They're not interested in you particularly.
You know, if somebody doesn't get the song, then that's fine. And, you know, if I believe it's a good song, then to me it's a good song.
And remember, you as a writer is the exact same person as the fan that buys the records. So if something strikes you and knocks you down, hang on to it.
I hate it. The rejection is so difficult, you know. That's one thing that's different about songwriting than just, you know, that other kind of jobs is there's a lot of rejection. If somebody passes on my song, that just means I haven't found the right artist to sing it. You know, every song I write is not right for every artist. For anybody, it's not going to be that way. So now I look at rejection as, oh, that's just one more step on the road to that song finding its right home.
The song will work its way up or down or sideways and find the right ear eventually. There are a million cases of that happening. There are a million cases of, you know, I heard Small Town Saturday Night. Pat Elger did it live one night down at Douglas Corner, and I thought, that's very cool. I just got a record deal. I might try that song and see if that works for me. That song had been pitched around Nashville for 5 or 6 years. That song there was a band doing that song live. There was a band that was maybe going to cut it on a record, maybe not. It's just a matter of time.
The one thing that was really important for me to learn is that songwriting, yes, it's very creative, and it's all these wonderful things, but it's also a business.
And I didn't know that for the longest time.
If somebody comes up and tells you all the great things they can do for you, the one thing that better not be in their pitch is asking for 1 penny. If someone asks you for 1 penny, run.
I think one of the things people need to be very wary of is, especially coming to Nashville and finding someone who will take a lot of your money and try to tell you that they will guarantee your position on a, quote, national trade chart, which will assure your record of being a hit on radio stations all across America, because they will promote it as such. Here you go, you're number 5 nationally, but you don't have anything for it. You barely have any airplay, you certainly have no sales. All you have is something you could take home and frame and say, I was number 5 nationally. I really can't think of one artist in the 20 years I've been involved in country radio and the country business who had a quote, well, I'll just say instead of hit, I'll say had a record that went up one of those charts that was then noticed and signed by a major label. That's a lot of people's hopes when they give somebody their $10,000 that will happen, and I can't think of anybody that's happened with. Throughout various parts of this tape, people are going to hear a lot about educating yourself and finding out what goes on in the music business and how it works. No matter what city you're in America as a songwriter, there's probably a country radio station within 5 miles of your home. These people are in the business. They have some contact with Nashville. They have a good feel for what's going on. An aspiring songwriter should go to that local radio station. A lot of the people at the local level of a radio station have Nashville contacts. So when that songwriter is polished and ready to go to Nashville, he can call up his new friend, the program director, and say, who do you think I should talk to? And that program director is going to be wired to the right people in Nashville, to the people who can help him get where he needs to go, who aren't going to rip him off or whatever.
When you plan a trip to Nashville, the first thing you should do is you should call ahead of time and make an appointment. We work by schedule, we work by appointment, just like if you were going to the dentist or the doctor. So you treat it professionally. You come with your songs demoed in a clear and audible fashion so that the song can be heard. You come with your lyrics typed and organized, ready for presentation, and you treat it like a business.
What you got to remember is publishers, we're not running a free clinic. You can't just drop off your songs and say, well, you know, check them out and I'll pick them up later. I'll call you later. Tell me what's good or bad about them, you know. And it really annoys me when writers do that with no introduction, say from one of the performing rights societies, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC.
If you want to be heard, if you want to have people sit down and give you an honest evaluation of where your talent is, I encourage you to call the performing rights organizations. I think that you will find willingness and helpfulness amongst all 3 of the organizations.
But if you're persistent and you remember that I, like every other publisher in town, has a family of songwriters that we pay a lot of money to listen to first, and songs that we're concerned with first, just bear that in mind and be patient with us, and a little persistence will pay off. While you're trying to knock on publishers' doors during the day, you can get out at night and you can fall into a particular little songwriter showcase and happen to see Alan Shamblin or Tom Schuyler or Don Schlitz or Richard Lee, or, you know, you'll just fall into the middle of it, and you can stand there for 2 hours and listen to what these folks are singing, which a lot of times is a song they finish that afternoon. That is an education that no publisher can give you, that I certainly, you know, in 2 hours of talking to a new writer, I can't furnish them with the input and the education that getting out and just listening and paying attention to those new writers can give you. I believe that it's a waste of money to go out and to try to polish up a song with a lot of hot guitar licks and a lot of load of background singers and stacked keyboard parts and all that. You know, if the song's a dog, all the hot licks in the world ain't gonna make it a great song. And if it is a great song, good, great, exceptional, then a simple, true voice and a guitar or a voice and a piano will tell the story.
There's a difference in the mix of a demo and a master recording. In a demo, you want that vocal out completely on the tape because the one thing people are listening for, I want to hear the words, and I want to hear the melody, and I want to hear the structure. I'm not interested in any other element at the beginning of that song. So a songwriter who's able to do their own demo, play an instrument and sing the song themselves, communicate the song themselves, can find opportunities in this community to do demos for under $100 a song.
Once that being accomplished, and we all agree, that is the writers and myself, that we've really nailed a great song, then it's my obligation to the writer to go out and use the best efforts I can to secure covers on the song. That is to match the song with the most likely recording artist, be it Randy Travis or Trisha Yearwood or Whitney Houston, it wouldn't matter, and take the very best shots I can at pitching the song to the artist via the producer, via the record company A&R staff, or via the artists themselves.
Well, the A&R department, artist and repertoire, is really the essentially creative, musically creative portion of the record label. It's the essential link between the creative community and the record label takes place right there. And the bottom line is, that's the product. It's really, it's determining of the good stuff what is great. That's basically what it comes down to.
A good song is really not good enough. You know, I'm looking for great songs. I'm looking for songs that have something timeless about them. You know, one of the greatest assets an entertainer has is surprise. You know, to say something that's like from a little different point of view, or that has some thoughts in it that are a little bit unique, you know. So I tell songwriters, look, we're all so many snowflakes. It's what's unique about the way you look at the world, or your eye is focused on a situation that's precious. So don't come in and say, I've got another Friends in Low Places, because I don't want another Friends in Low Places. I'd like to have one for Garth that was that big and that loved and that popular, but we've done that.
A great artist with great music is the beginning. That's the bottom line. And then you have to go through the process of the promotion and the marketing and the selling of those records. Obviously, our main promotion tool is country radio. And if you don't have hits that create the awareness, you've got a problem.
You know, nobody wants to keep hit records off the radio. If you come in, nobody from nowhere, and have a really great record, it'll find airplay. It may be a lot longer road than if you're on a national label with a big promotion team, but people want to play hit records, and there are people out there looking for hit songs and hit records, because that's how they make money.
One of the most important things that a writer can do is to study country radio and their market. How can you write for a market if you're not aware of what the needs that market may have? If you don't know what Trisha Yearwood sounds like, how can you perceive that you might have written a song for her?
It's probably one of the biggest thrills that all of us in the business have, is hearing a song that really excites us and really turns us on.
Songs change people's lives, or they are such a part of the passion of people's lives that that's what they want to have. So the constant process of the creative process of songwriting in this town is absolutely the fuel that drives it all.
One thing I'd like to say to songwriters or new singers or any other thing, they hear a lot of stories about the business that make them think it's rigged, or that it's political. And I say to you, if your talent is good enough, none of this will affect you. When I came to town as a songwriter, there were parts of town, certain production operations or certain label operations where the doors were less open, less inviting, and I could have looked at that and been discouraged and thought, well, gee, I can't get in over there. But I looked at it and thought, that's okay. They don't need my songs. I'll find doors. My songs are needed. My good songs are going to be needed.
I figure my responsibility as a songwriter is to write a great song. Great songs are greater than politics, and they always will be. And
you know, I would pledge that during my tenure at RCA, songs will not be picked for political reasons. This community has just risen to the occasion. They fought hard. We've gained tremendous ground. And sitting now in the hot seat at a record label, I'm supportive of that, because as far as I'm concerned, if the songwriting community isn't being treated fairly, we are throwing water on the fire of our greatest asset in this town.
If a writer comes to me with a problem, such as they want me to give up all rights, or they want me to give up half of my writer's credit, the first thing I will say to them is, close that door, walk away. You don't want to be associated with this person. Anybody with any respect for our industry and what we're about would never ask a writer to give up writer credit. Never.
I mean, when a writer comes to town, he can expect to split the income with his publisher, for instance. He'll get the writer's share, and the publisher will get his share for trying to exploit the copyright. That's a fair deal. But if he comes to town and the publisher wants the publisher's share, but then he asks for part of the writer's share too, you know, and the writer agrees to that, then he did not do his homework. There are those who think that music should be free because it comes through a radio, or it comes through a television, or they hear it in a movie theater, in a restaurant. They don't understand sometimes that there's a man or a woman or two people or three that sat down, wrote the song, and actually own it. It's their property. But people out in the country that don't have anything to do with songwriters don't realize that men and women own those songs and pay their mortgages and car payments and buy clothes for their children and eat. Music is not free, but there are people that want it to be, and therefore we have to constantly go and remind them of the copyright laws that protect creators.
Nobody ever wants to hear my opinion of what the first thing to do is. If you're really serious, I think you need, I mean, if a baseball player wants to play baseball, he's got to go where they're playing baseball. And it's simply Nashville. There's no other place if you're talking about country music. You come here and you put your guitar in the closet. And for the first 2 or 3 months, you go out and you get you a day job. And you find a place to live. After about 2 months, when everything starts to settle in and you're through missing your family and you talk to them on the phone regularly and everything's going well and your bills are being paid, go to that closet, get that guitar. Start picking 1 or 2 nights a week to go out and listen. Listen, start doing your writer's nights, mingle with the people, because the thing you're going to find out when you're here, how ironic, 1,500 other people came the same day I did to this town.
But let's assume you're not going to move to Nashville. I do think you have to go down there once in a while. I think you have to get to know a few people just for information purposes and to develop a few lines that are not through the front door. Now, I think you can do that. I think if you go down there a few times a year, or maybe go down there once a year, but really go down there with a couple of strong songs, you know, you can begin to make a dent in this thing. Now, it's very important that, as I said, I always tell my students that I think you're much better off spending about 75% of your time really trying to write the best song you can, and then maybe 25% of the time trying to make something happen with it. Don't spend all your like I know people that spend all their time trying to make something happen and not enough time writing.
But first you have to be the best wherever you are. You know, if you're living in Richmond, Virginia, or Fredericksburg, or wherever you are, or some Dallas, Texas, big city like that, there better be a buzz about you there. Because if you're a songwriter, you're probably out playing, or somebody's playing your song somewhere, and there better be a little buzz about you other than mom and dad and the sisters and the cousins. I don't think you have to move to Nashville to write songs. I do think that you have to be in Nashville a great deal to realize how this community really works. I know I tried it both ways. I tried coming up here on every 6 months and then every 3 months, and there was a point in time where I just realized I had to be here.
You know, you want to go down there with what I think are your greatest hits. In other words, if you've written 10 songs, you don't have any greatest hits yet. You know, I think my rule of thumb would be
have you written 100 songs? Now, some people may recoil in horror, but I think you should have written, at least, 50 or more songs, and preferably 100, so that you have your greatest hits. Among that 100, you can pick out maybe 5 songs that really stand out, because that's the way, most songwriters have plenty of songs that nothing happens with them, but you get a few that do.
Do you have one good song? Do you even have one competitive song? And if you do, bring it to town and see what happens. But the song is going to always be first and last in everything. You're going to have the product. They're really not interested in developing you.
Many or most of the artists I've worked with have had college educations. Country people aren't illiterate. Don't let me, for a minute, make you think that you can't be a songwriter and live somewhere else. I know some people who do that and they're very successful, but most of them are connected into the music business in some way so that they've grown and they've learned and they've developed their talents over a period of time. And but I would say it's helpful to be here, ultimately.
I moved to Nashville in August of '87, and I'd been here about a year and been at Hay Street and Almo Irving Music for about 6 months. And I hadn't been writing songs that moved me or my publisher, and I was becoming very discouraged, and I was even thinking about moving back to Texas, and maybe this wasn't my calling. But I went down to Austin, Texas, and when I got there, I got a call from Don Schlitz. He said, "Alan, come on over to Austin City Limits and hang out with me and Harlan Howard and Mike Reed." Mike ended up spending about an hour and a half with me up in the stands there at Austin City Limits, and I poured my heart out to him and told him how discouraged I was, that I didn't feel like I was writing songs that moved me or moved anybody, but I felt like there was something inside me. I felt like there were great songs inside me. And Mike consoled me and gave me his ear to bend for a while, and then he said, "Great, you're right where you need to be." He said, "You've been learning the craft, now get down to work and start writing songs from your heart." And so I came back to Nashville, and that Monday morning I got up and turned on the TV, and there was somebody talking on the TV, and they said, they were talking about dreams, and they were talking about when you're chasing a dream, often the race gets toughest just before you cross the finish line. I'll remember this spot for as long as I live, because it was right here. I was sitting right here at this red light, and he wore starched white shirts, buttoned at the neck. He'd sit in the shade and watch the chickens peck, and his teeth were gone, but what the heck flashed into my mind. And at that point, I didn't have a title or didn't even really know what I was writing about. And to be honest with you, when I rhymed neck, peck, and heck, I thought that was kind of corny. But I thought, well, I'm going to follow this and see where it goes. So I went into Hay Street and I sat down, and after about an hour or so, the line, "I thought he walked on water," just tumbled out of my mouth. I thought that he walked on water. I worked on it, and I took it into my publisher, and I had 4 verses, no chorus. And she goes, Pat said, I love these verses, but I think you need a chorus. And so I worked, and I came up with that chorus, and I brought it back, and she really liked it.
Ready to try one?
Okay. And I came right over to the studio we're sitting in right now, and Chris fired up the machine, and I played guitar and sang. It just as basic a demo as you could get. And we did 1 take. As I remember, I believe 1 pass, just right through, and that was it. He tied a cord to the end of a mop, said, "Son, here's a pony, keep her at a trot." And I'd ride in circles while he laughed a lot. Then I'd flop down beside him. He was 90 years old in '63, and I loved him and he loved me. And Lord, I cried the day he died, 'cause I thought that he walked on water.
We thought the song was wonderful.
when I first heard it, it really made me cry, which very few songs do.
Martha said she was going to play it for Randy. And Randy loved the song, and I got excited again. And then from there, I was just really excited. I mean, every day I'd just wake up like I was on a cloud because I'd written the first song in a long time that moved me, and it was moving other people. And Randy liked the song, and it went on hold. So we went through about 3 months where the song was on hold, and then he recorded it. And I remember when I got the phone call that he'd recorded it, and Martha called me up and said, come over here and listen to this. And I went over and we sat in her office, and she played the cut for me, and it just totally blew me away.
I think there was a sneaking feeling in our hearts that this could come out as a single, but we needed radio and the public to tell us that this needed to be a single, and they told us right away.
Well, the first time I heard He Walked on Water on the radio, I just bought a new truck, and it was parked outside my apartment. I was going to the Bluebird Cafe to play that night, and I walked out of my apartment, and sitting under the street light was this shiny, brand new truck. And I looked out there and I thought, man, there's a truck that He Walked on Water helped pay for. And I walked and unlocked the truck, got in and cranked it up, and as soon as the ignition kicked in and the radio came on, it went, I thought he walked on water. And that was the first time I heard He Walked on Water. It was in that brand new truck that it paid for. When I told my dad I was going to move to Nashville, he called me up one night about midnight after thinking about it and saying, Alan, don't do it. He said, I don't think that's a good thing to do. If you get up there and go broke, he said, don't call me and ask me for money. Well, I got up here and I started parking cars, which wasn't enough to pay the bills, and I was going broke. And my dad, first person that called me and asked me if I needed any money was my dad. And he said, I'm going to loan you some money, but don't tell your mother. And at the same time, my mother was calling me and saying, I want to loan you some money, but don't tell your dad. And so they were both sending me money unbeknownst to the other. So I was making a pretty good living when I got here.
Go for it. It's the cheapest hobby in the world. My God, you know, you need probably to know how to play an instrument, you know, but you know, like legal pads and pencils and pens, those things are cheap. It doesn't cost you anything to try, basically, and be a writer.
I often wondered what I would feel like, how I would react or feel when I first heard one of my songs on the radio. I'll never forget it. I was in my home in Los Angeles, in my den, and I'm Going to Be Somebody came on. And I just sat down, I turned it up, I sat down, and I just cried. I just cried. I fell apart. You know, I write music to affect people's lives, to move them in some way. You know, the greatest compliment I could have is if I wrote a song and somebody said, she read my mind. That's exactly, she knows exactly how I feel.
The most encouraging thing I can ever say to anybody is that in spite of all the odds against you, there's always has been, and I believe there will always be, a great shortage of really great songs. There's just a few of those, and you know, if you can write one of those, eventually it'll happen if you just keep bouncing it around.
Don't give away your work. Make sure that you're doing reciprocal business with someone that can help you as much as you can help them, and realize that without the song and the songwriter, that ain't nobody around here got a job, that they'll fold, that this town will close up in a heartbeat if there weren't great songs to record.
You'll be coming into a community that I firmly believe is the greatest songwriting community on the face of the earth. I don't turn my back on other musical communities, but I sincerely believe that this is sort of what the left bank in Paris has been to painters in the 19th century, and here we are. So you got to be good, you got to be great, and actually we're looking for great songs because this town is crawling with good songs.
I tell writers a good song will not get recorded in Nashville. No, a good song won't get cut. It has to be a 2x4. It has to be the song that can be the next single for whatever artist you're pitching that tune to. If you walk in and you think you've got a hit song for Trisha Yearwood, you've got to believe it with every fiber of your being. And it can't be because my grandma loves this song. It can't be because my best friend thinks I'm just a wonderful writer. It's got to be overlaid with a knowledge of the business.
That's why NSAI is such an important organization. It's why ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, the performing rights organizations, are so important, because it's so difficult if you've had no track record.
Always prepare like everything you're going to do is a success. Be ready to know how to handle it. Be ready to know what your next move is going to be. You don't need to know that if it's a failure. Your next move is to try again. Always.
Well, I'm not going to quit writing. I mean, it's like I got this, I'm 65 now, and I got this vision in my mind that when the time comes and I need it, I'm going to have an electric wheelchair. I'm going to make all the publishers and all the restaurants put up ramps, you know? And, you know, I mean, they're going to have to take care of me because I'm coming down there, you know, and I'm going to try and get one more record. I mean, there's got to be a stopping place somewhere, but I can't foresee it. I mean, I can't imagine that, trying to get one more record or write one more song. This is just a lot of fun. I mean, I was born to do this.
Well, that's about as much as we could cram into 60 minutes, and we've really just scratched the surface. Remember, there's no such thing as a foolproof system for writing a hit song, but we hope that by studying this tape, you'll be able to avoid some of the pitfalls. At the conclusion of this program, there will be more information about the Nashville Songwriters Association International. Proud to say that I'm a member, and I hope you too will consider joining. Take a look at the membership card and the list of services that came with your tape. Thanks for your time, and good luck to you.
Hi, I'm Richard Lee, and I wanted to take just one more minute of your time to encourage you to become a member of the Nashville Songwriters Association. The NSAI is your most effective and most direct link to the songwriting community because we're dedicated entirely to serving the needs of all songwriters at all stages of their careers. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned professional, the NSAI exists to help you perfect your craft and enhance your chances of success. If you're really serious about songwriting, you'll want to be a part of this important organization. Also, I hope you'll watch for upcoming documentaries that'll look even more closely into this fascinating profession. Everyone here at the NSAI wants to wish you a lot of luck. And as Harlan Howard, the Dean of Nashville Songwriters, says, go for it.
You're born with a gift of perception. You're not born with the ability to write. It's like you can be a great carpenter, but unless you know 6 times you sand the table, you use linseed oil rather than shellac. You don't use just nails. You use screws and you countersink and you put a peg in. Unless you know all that, it's like writers say, yeah, well, I have the idea and I done it. Well, that's like coming to me with a great piece of wood and all the screws and the drill and the glue and the clamps, and you don't know how to put it together. Now, left to your own devices, you'll turn out a cheap little table that will wobbly hold up a cup of coffee. With the same wood and the same equipment and expertise, you'll turn out a piece that will last not your lifetime, but many lifetimes.